Good morning. This is Jason Dean coming live at you again for a new Film Fanatic show. It's 10:57, April 3rd. I hope everyone's doing good. A pretty rainy, dark day today. I guess I guess we need the rain. So yeah. I hope everyone's doing good. I am gonna do a show. Well, this is kind of I do these little specialty shows. Sometimes I talk about I'll do a little video on a movie that I'm anticipating to see, or a movie I'm going to see in the theater. Some cases it's a movie that I'm really excited to see. Sometimes it's like a movie that maybe just appeared out of nowhere and I'm like, oh, okay, I'll just go see that. Generally I try to be, I don't know, try to be pretty selective to as far as what movies I like to go see. But tonight I'm going to go with some friends and we're going to go see the new Ryan Gosling movie that I think it opened probably a week or 2 weeks ago, Project Hail Mary. So I just wanted to do a quick little side video on my thoughts going into seeing it, what I know about it, what I don't know about it, and my excitement level around it or just my anticipation. So I wanted to just make a little video because I'm going to go see it tonight. We're going to go see it at the Colonial Theatre in Belfast, and then, of course, I'll do a review for it probably tomorrow, which is Saturday. So, yeah, I haven't been to the theater in a while. Well, I should say it's been probably 3 weeks or so. I did go, the last time I went to the movies, I went to go see Friday 13th, the final chapter. I've gotten a chance this year to see part three, Friday 13th, and the final chapter, the original 80s films. Got to see them in the theater, which was just absolutely incredible. So awesome. The last movie I saw, well, Friday, the final chapter, we saw that, and that movie that's one of the things about the length of movies. Those movies are so short. It started at like 7 o'clock. It was done by 8:30, and I had said I was with a buddy, and we were like, I was like, hey, why don't we go see? Do you want to see another movie since it's so early? We got done at 8:30. We saw it at Black Bear Cinema, which is a really awesome movie theater. I'm looking forward to going up there again. It's a little bit of a hike up there because it's like an hour and 10 or hour and 15 minutes, but it's totally worth it. Totally worth it. So we ended up deciding to stay and hang out and watch another movie. And we watched the newer or the latest release from A24, Undertone. I had a lot of problems with that movie. I thought it was a cool concept, had some cool things about it. I did do a show on it. But technically, well, that came out this year, 2026. Probably, as far as new movies, probably the second movie I've seen this year. The first movie I saw this year, which I really liked, was the Sam Raimi movie, Send Help. Really cool movie. I'm looking forward to seeing that again. I saw that when it came out. That was definitely probably the best movie I've seen this year as far as new releases go. So tonight we're going to go see Project Hail Mary, which will be the third movie that I will be going to see. So I'm excited to see this movie. I had a little bit of a weird, well, kind of a mixed reaction when I first saw the trailer. And I had this thing. One thing that's happened for me. We're going to go see it at the Colonial Theater, which is literally 6 minutes from where I work in Belfast. It's about 7 minutes, 8 minutes from my house, so it's right in Belfast. One of the things, like when I first heard about this movie, Project Hail Mary, at least a year ago, and I saw the trailer. I think it was a teaser trailer. It wasn't a full trailer. I don't think I've seen a full trailer. I generally try to stay away from trailers because I think most trailers these days, there's exceptions, but most trailers these days basically give the entire movie away, and it's really awful. So I generally try to stay away. But one thing that's happened to me as I've gotten older, and, I'm an old man now, is that I don't really feel when I see reviews or hear about a movie or listen to podcasts about a particular movie, all of those things, even to a degree of spoilers, which I definitely obviously stay away from, but even in cases of where that's been a thing and I found myself in that experience accidentally, which is kind of awful. I find now, like when I go into a movie, I can just leave all of that stuff, whatever I've heard of that film or whatever I know about. I think I'm pretty good about going into a movie now and just having the experience, not letting anything influence me, not letting any of that stuff kind of filter in. Even mostly giving me this like sense of like a preconceived notion that this is going to be this kind of movie, or it looks so great or fantastic. I love this director. I love all the actors. So I'm going to go into it and I'm going to love it. I go into each movie pretty cold and just go, well, not cold is the wrong word, but I go into each movie excited for the experience, but just as a blank slate. I don't let it seems as I've gotten older, all of those things, if I see reviews and all of those other things come into play before I see that particular film, it doesn't seem to influence me or to ruin the experience or get in the way. I can kind of put that away when I go to the theater and see the movie in the actual theater. So when I was younger, I really got into, well, I'm almost ashamed to admit it, but I used to years ago. I used to when magazines technically still do exist, and publications and things like that still do technically exist. But I used to have a subscription to a couple of different magazines back in the day. Rolling Stone, I used to have a subscription to, and I used to have a subscription to Entertainment Weekly. Yes, which is kind of awful to admit in public, but I did. And I was, really, 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 obsessed with movies. In the late '90s into the early 2000s, I became, a few years after I got out of college, I became a big time collector of movies. That's kind of where it started. And at that time, it was all DVDs. But I was totally into it. I used to go to the movies all the time. I used to work at a restaurant in Camden, Maine for a long time, and I had a little crew of friends at that period of time where we would always go to the movies. We used to go all the time. One of my most memorable experiences was going to see Eyes Wide Shut in the theater when it came out, and that was super exciting. Stanley Kubrick's my favorite director, and I remember that like it was yesterday, and it was such a great experience. It was the only time I ever got to see one of his films when it opened, and it was such a powerful experience. Especially around, he had just passed away like a few days before the movie, and it was intense. And one of the funniest experiences I had was I remember going with that same crew of guys. Was I remember going to see, and this was in the '90s, so it was a long time ago, late '90s, going into the 2000s. I had just started working at this restaurant. I was there for 10 years, but I remember going with that same crew of going to see Vin Diesel's Pitch Black in the theater, and seeing it at the Strand, which now is a beautiful, beautiful theater, but back then it was a total shithole. So that was a pretty funny experience to see how that's all changed. But definitely when I was younger and I was very different back then. I used to watch the Academy Awards. I used to follow, all of the movies that were coming out and especially around award season, like with the Golden Globes, all of that stuff. I used to be totally into following those movies that came out, and I used to purposely go see or watch or rent those movies specifically because they got nominated. So I really paid attention to that. And I used to watch religiously. I used to watch the Academy Awards ceremonies every year and watch the Golden Globes. I was totally into it. And then over a period of time, I just now it basically makes me throw open my mouth and I can't stand it. And I haven't watched an award show in years. I do, even this past one, which I was really happy that one battle after another won so many awards. I do after the those ceremony award shows. I do like usually the next day or that night. I will see who has what movies won or who won best director, and I'll look it up online. But I haven't watched the award shows. I can't stomach it. I can't get through it, and it just irritates me. And I've just had so many issues around those ceremonies, those award shows. Every now and then, a good film really wins, awards that it deserves, but there's so much bullshit involved with it that I just generally could care less. Just because I see movies a lot and I love movies to death, I tend to just, come the movies that happen to be nominated, I tend to just see them, you know, in my travels anyway. I don't go to see them because this film was nominated, blah blah blah. So I'm gonna see it. That's never a motivation now. So it was very different back then. The other thing that was very different back then was when I would see a movie, I would go in with a lot of the times preconceived notions of what I thought, and definitely if I saw trailers or reviews of those films, unfortunately I would feel that it would kind of ruin the experience for me going to the movies. As far as the experience itself is something I always loved, but my actual reaction to the movie or to those movies would there would be times of where it would influence, and I couldn't shed that kind of thing going to while I was going to see that actual movie. It was weird, and usually I couldn't make a real sound, or couldn't really think, I couldn't really decide. I'd have to see the movie on my own, maybe once, twice, or maybe two or three times, and then I would make a real sound kind of judgment of that film. But it would influence a lot of the time, and actually seeing the movie, it would kind of get in the way of just having, an objective experience. But now, as I've gotten older, it doesn't matter. It's I generally, because I just think it's more enjoyable, I generally like to go into a movie, pretty cold. If I hear a little buzz or something that looks really exciting from, maybe some resources or sources that I really, like YouTube guys or girls that I really love, or we seem to have a lot of the same taste. If they really rave about something, then, that's usually pretty solid for me. But now when I go into the movie, go to a movie, if I watch, there's been many cases of where I try to stay away from trailers because I think trailers overall kind of suck now. I try to stay away from trailers as much as I can. I try to stay away from reviews, box office returns, all that stuff. I try to. But I do find when I go into a movie really, really cold, and if I do hear initial, some really great buzz about something, then that will, obviously determine if I'm gonna go to see it. But I do find the colder I go into a movie, the more exciting and the more surprising that experience will be. But there's been cases of where there'll be a movie that I'm just really, really excited to see, and I can't wait to see it, and I will look up reviews and you know watch videos about that particular movie. And now and then sometimes that will happen. It doesn't happen a lot, but occasionally it does happen now because I'm just excited about seeing a movie, and I know, it say it came out. There's the opening weekend, and I know for some reason I can't go to it for a couple of weeks or that weekend, but I'm just really looking forward to it. I will sometimes just go ahead and check out all the shit about the movie, and then I'll eventually see it. But I find now it doesn't influence me really at all, which is nice. I can kind of be just in that objective or subjective place and just experience the movie for what it is. But when I was younger, that would it would kind of it would alter it, and not great. Not a very cool, not a very cool thing. So so as far as this movie, Project Hail Mary, I saw the trailer for. Well, I should say I didn't see the trailer. It was more of a teaser trailer. I saw I saw a little bit. I saw this teaser trailer, and there's a YouTube channel that I watch, and they were both talking about this movie, saying how they were really excited to see it. One of the guys on the show had said that he was this movie was one of the most anticipated shows or anticipated movies for him to see in 2026, and he was also talking about the book, saying that the book was one of his favorites. So I didn't know it was a book at all. This was actually the same channel and actually the same guy of how I first heard about the Stephen King movie, The Long Road, that came out last year, where the same guy had said that this was his favorite book of all time. It was the very first Stephen King novel published, and just was so anticipating this movie. And that's how I heard about The Long Walk, which is an incredible movie. I have that on Blu-ray. So, again, kind of an example of a reliable source, or at least what I think of. And so he was saying that the book, Project Hail Mary, is pretty extraordinary. I guess it's the same author who wrote The Martian, and that was adapted into a movie by Ridley Scott with Matt Damon. That movie's pretty good. I'd like to see that again, but I remember seeing that movie, and it's by the same author as Project Hail Mary. I saw The Martian in the theater, and I thought it was pretty good. I thought it was pretty decent. It was one of the last real solid Ridley Scott films, because Ridley Scott hasn't. I don't think, he went from being one of the greatest directors ever to like making movies that are just so bland or mediocre. And I thought The Martian was probably one of the last movies that he did that was pretty solid. And I remember seeing The Martian again a few years later. I've only seen it twice, but I remember seeing it again on Blu-ray at home a few years after seeing it in a theater, and I remember enjoying it more. So, but then I did see the teaser trailer for Project Hail Mary, and I thought it looked good. But the thing that I wasn't super excited to see it. I wasn't like chomping at the bit to see it, and the reason is that I heard that this movie was, kind of like a classic Spielberg film, like a movie that has appeal for all the ages. It's a popcorn movie, but it's got heart and soul. But it's something. There's something in there for kids and for older, all generations. It looked, and I don't mean this in a negative way, but it looked, when I saw the trailer, I thought it looked, and I love Spielberg. I mean, Jaws is one of the greatest movies ever made, if not the greatest, aside from the Godfather. It's like the perfect movie, like Tarantino says. So but Spielberg is also he knows the formula on how to make a movie for everyone, and he's a master of that. So when I saw the teaser trailer, I was like, it looks good, but I was kind of like, I don't know, like I felt like, and it was probably my mindset, but it looked like it was going to be kind of a nice movie, a PG movie. It looked very much like it reminded me of like E.T., And I was kind of like, yeah, that's a classic movie, and that's great. But I was kind of like hoping that it would be a little bit more. I don't know, a little bit more. Or, I don't know. Maybe I was hoping it would have a little bit more of an edge, or maybe a little bit of an adult kind of flavor, just something that made it a little bit more, a little bit more gripping or daring. But again, this was based on just seeing this teaser trailer and from what I heard. So I was like, it looks good, but I don't know if I want to see it in the theater. I don't know. But then, the movie's been out for a couple of weeks, and it did a massive, massive numbers in the box office. Massive. And being that I knew I was almost going to go see it, Project Camera, it's been out, I believe, for just about 2 weeks. I was going to go see it one weekend. I think I was going to go see it with my friends opening weekend, but we had this kind of crazy snowstorm. And so we didn't end up going to see it. It was probably the last snowstorm that we had. And then I think we tried kind of going to see it again. It didn't quite work out, but we're going to go see it tonight. But in the time since then, or time being, I've looked up some more reviews, and it sounds really interesting. It sounds really cool. It sounds like it's got a lot of cool elements. That it does have some serious tones. It's funny. It is a feel good movie, if you will. Like, it's supposed to be really good as far as the science fiction element. It's pretty grounded in reality, I guess. So I'm excited to see it. And I do think, whatever, regardless of all of that, I do think that it's definitely a movie to see on the big screen, like, without a doubt. So probably my biggest motivation to go see it. So we're gonna go see it tonight, and I'll do a little review for it this weekend. So, and I really love Ryan Gosling. I've always loved his work. One of my favorite films of his is Drive, which has got to be one of the most badass movies. I love that movie to death. He's got so many great films. He is great at playing a very dark kind of a character. I loved him in Blade Runner 2049. There was another movie. He was great in that. Fantastic. And I loved was it the Wind Beneath the Pines. I might have the title wrong, which is a really good movie. Super depressing, but really good. I mean, he's done some amazing work. The same director who did that movie also did Blue Valentine, another super depressing movie, but really good. Ryan Gosling's also a super talented musician. He has a band called Dead Man's Bones, which anybody out there hasn't checked out, definitely check it out. It's really cool stuff. It's kind of gothic rock, very spooky, but really cool. Really, really cool. Real interesting music. It has this. And when I've heard their music, it sounds like you've put on this like old record, like an old scratchy record from like the 50s or 60s. But really cool music, really interesting, really unique. Has a little bit of like a Tom Waits vibe to it. It's definitely very dark and atmospheric. It's got a punk kind of vibe to it. Really cool. So, and he's also, he can do. He's really funny. He's great in comedies. There's that one movie which I can't remember the name of it that I do own, and it's with Ryan Gosling and Steve Carell. It's a comedy and it's super funny. He's great in that movie. That's a really great movie, and all of his infamous Ryan Gosling's infamous appearances on SNL over the years are always super hilarious. And again, he can be, a totally dramatic actor. I think he can do anything, and I generally feel like he is one of those actors that can be in a movie that is not particularly that great, but he's great in the movie, and it's worth seeing. He's like always consistent. He was great as Ken in the Barbie movie. He was really great in that. I actually enjoyed that movie quite a bit. So, yeah, I'm excited to see it, and I'll definitely do a review for or a talk. I don't always refer to the videos I do on this channel as like reviews. It's more of a kind of a discussion. I had one person who is a really great supporter of this channel who had said that he kind of feels like my shows are more not necessarily reviews, but he said it's like just a conversation where he said like he gets the sense that I'm like just sitting around with talking with friends, just talking about movies. So that's kind of what I do. It's not like a straight up review. I try to just talk about a lot of different things around it, around that movie and just the experience. So, and speaking of experiences, it's like even if this movie, say for some reason, isn't, I don't find it particularly that good, or maybe I don't like the movie at all. I just really love the experience of going to the movies. It's pretty much my favorite thing to do when I can do it. I love going to see live music. That's a huge thing for me. I really am a firm believer in like supporting local music and local art. So, and also movies. So, I've had that experience many times where I've gone to the movies and I've seen, movies that are not very good or just really overhyped or just make for a pretty crappy experience, the actual movie itself, but the actual experience of going to the theater, going to the theater with maybe a group of friends. I've gone to the movies also, at times by myself, and I don't usually have a hang up about that, and that's totally fine. But it's always fun if you can get a group of friends to go because it's, you just kind of bullshit and you goof around and you talk about the movie afterwards. It's always fun to like, that's one of the things I love to do right after I see a movie. If I'm, if I had seen, if I was with a couple of friends and we watched the movie together, the first thing I usually do is turn to them and say, "Hey, so what are your thoughts?" And then you usually discuss. I typically don't let my feelings known right away. I kind of like sit on it, and I still just there's times of where I will have an immediate reaction to a particular film. But generally, I like to sit on a movie for 24 hours. I don't do out of the theater reviews because I feel, I feel like you gotta like, at least for me, and I know like the out of the theater review thing is very popular on YouTube, and I get it. It's part of that kind of that instant gratification thing that people crave, which is it is whatever. But for me, I need to like at least 24 hours to kind of sit with a movie to see if I'm excited about it or if I'm not excited. I need to kind of like, it sounds a little funky or maybe pretentious, but I like to process the movie. And usually after 24 hours or if a day or two go by, that's usually when I can kind of really know how my reaction is. Sometimes I have that experience of where the movie is, I have to kind of sit with it for a couple of days. I had that experience. Two examples of that was when I saw Undertone in the theater. I I enjoyed the experience. The whole night was fun, and I had a good time in the theater because we had I was coming from seeing the final chapter, my favorite Friday 13th movie of all time, so I had this like buzz, and it was just really fun. We got to hang out with the manager of the theater before and between the shows, and a couple of the people that work at the theater, really cool people, and we just talked movies. And then I saw Undertone, and there were things about the movie I thought were pretty good and interesting, but it was kind of a mixed thing. But I couldn't really, like, coming out of that movie, I liked it, but I knew there were things about it that didn't really sit with me so well. But I didn't wasn't at a place where I could say right then and there if I liked it or I didn't like it. I needed some time to process it. And after a few days, or even sometimes it's longer. Sometimes this can be three to 5 days or whatever. I I realized, okay, what I thought about the movie, and I'm like, okay, thought about the movie a little bit each day, and I'm like, okay, this is what, and then I kind of arrived to my conclusion. So that happens. It's a funny process. It takes me a long time to generally process kind of new information because my brain is small. And then there's examples of where I will have an immediate reaction to a movie, and be I'll have this very strong reaction to something, and I kind of know where I feel, or I kind of know where I stand with that film. I had that experience with the last Predator movie, Badlands, where it was very mixed for me. I really thought some of the aspects of that movie I really liked, but then I realized I was trapped in the theater watching a Disney movie, but it was in Predator form. And I remember turning to some friends while I was watching it, and I had this immediate reaction, and I was like, "Man, this is like a Pixar Disney movie. Like, what's going on here?" And it just got that became such a thing for me with the movie that it took me out of the movie. Even though I thought there were some cool things about that movie, it was kind of mixed, but I had this instant reaction to it. So, and I don't think it's the movie going experience isn't like an intellectual thing. I do think your gut reaction to really anything in life, but your gut, your instincts, your gut reaction to something is usually pretty solid telltale, sign of how you feel about that particular thing or that film. So yeah, looking forward to it, and I'll do a review this weekend. Peace.